Hi, I'm Dr. Ashley Holcomb, and today we're going to talk a little bit about why victims of domestic or intimate partner violence or sexual assault often blame themselves or feel ashamed. We're also going to talk about a few ways that whether you are a victim or you are an ally, you can help reduce shame around intimate partner violence. In my experience of working with trauma victims, especially women in abusive relationships or men or women who have been sexually assaulted, I've seen a few reasons why victims tend to blame themselves instead of their perpetrator. There's a lot of shame around being a victim, but where does this shame actually come from? I think it comes from cultural messages or even actual conversations with loved ones around these issues of intimate partner violence or sexual assault. So I've heard many victims talking about how they just didn't try hard enough or they should have known better than to engage in some behavior that happened right before the abuse. And the really sad thing is that a lot of these conversations actually happen with other women. I've had women tell me that their mom, their sister, their female friend tried to justify the abusive behavior. I went through worse, or at least he's not hitting you, or at least he's not hitting the kids, but he's such a good father. And the list goes on and on. I think there's two things at play here. I think for one, we've really normalized abuse in our culture. A lot of women believe that it is normal for a man to yell or demean or hit when he's angry. And therefore, if that's normal, then it must be the woman's fault for not getting the dinner on the table on time, or for being disrespectful, or for wearing a low-cut top. I think the second thing is that nobody wants to believe that intimate partner violence and sexual assault are as common as they are. We want to feel safe. We don't want to live with that reality that these horrible things happen in the world. And so even women who've been through sexual assault and intimate partner violence can sometimes, want to believe that it's their fault because there's this underlying desire to feel like they have control over it. This defense mechanism is called projective identification, right? If I can believe that this horrible thing that happened to me was really in my control the whole time, then I can actually prevent it from happening if I change my behavior. There's a psychological theorist, Ronald Fairbairn, and he says, "It is better to be a sinner in a world ruled by God than to live in a world ruled by the devil." That's how he described this phenomenon, right? The idea being that, at least for our topic, it's cognitively easier, it's emotionally easier for women to believe that they are a failed woman in a fair world instead of recognizing that this man who says he loves you is hurting you and that you can't change him. So what do we do about this? How do we reduce shame around intimate partner violence and sexual assault and create a culture that holds abusers accountable while also empowering victims to acknowledge their experience? I think the Me Too movement really moved us forward quite a bit on this issue. We had some major names of powerful women acknowledging their history, and we saw some major names of powerful men being held accountable for their abuse. But for most of us, we aren't lawyers who can follow lawsuits. We aren't powerful people with massive Instagram followings that can sway culture with a single Instagram post. So what can you and I do that will make a difference? I think the first thing is learning how to listen, validate, and honor women's experiences. Are you the kind of friend that a woman feels she could open up to you about her sexual assault or intimate partner violence history? Why or why not? And if not, what are some things you could do to become that kind of friend? Maybe there's some obvious ways. Learn more about the Me Too movement. Post on your social media. Start conversations with people about famous sexual assault cases that are being talked about in the news. Y'all, Me Too may have been a few years ago, but women are still being assaulted. So there's plenty more to have conversations about. I think there's also a few ways that are maybe a little less obvious that you can communicate that you're a safe person. Don't laugh at violent or sexual jokes that are at the expense of women, whether it's online, whether it's in the movies, whatever. Don't laugh at that. It's not funny. If you're a man, offer to walk a woman to her car when it's dark out and acknowledge, hey, it's dark out. That might be uncomfortable. Can I walk you to your car so you feel safe? If someone does talk to you about their history of intimate partner violence or sexual assault, don't give them trite statements and cheap advice. Listen, show empathy, just be present, even when it's uncomfortable. I think the second thing you can do is work to set boundaries when people who do make inappropriate comments or jokes at women's expense, or when they try to normalize abuse. You can do it in a way that's not aggravated. You don't have to curse the person out. Actually, if you're calm, assertive, and serious, people are going to take you more seriously. So you can say like, hey, actually, it's not okay for a man to hit a woman, no matter the circumstances. Or you can say, I didn't really think that was funny. I thought that was kind of crass, and I don't really appreciate you using that language here. So if you do it in a way that's calm, you do it in a way that's serious, that person, they may act defensive or roll their eyes in the moment, but they will go home and think about what you said. You also just gave a cue to anyone listening who's a victim that you're a safe person to talk to. And you just set the tone of whatever culture that you were in at the time to say that this kind of behavior and attitude is not acceptable here. I hope this video gave you some insight into why victims tend to blame themselves, and also gave you some ideas about how to be a culture shaper in order to put a stop to the normalization of abuse. Maybe you were listening today and you've been through intimate partner violence, or you've been through sexual assault. I want to encourage you, yes, take a look at my other videos about trauma. Yes, look up other resources, but I want you to remember that these videos are not a substitute for therapy. If you haven't gotten a chance to talk to a therapist about your experience, I really want to encourage you to do that. There are people out there who are not going to shame you, who are not going to blame you for what you went through, and who are going to help you remember that you deserve to feel safe. You deserve to have the people who say they love you treat you like they love you. And I think a therapist having that safe space is really important if you haven't had that opportunity already. So please check out my profile. I have some links that can help you get access to resources in your area.